The negotiation table stretched between two species who had nothing in common except mutual distrust. Rebecca Stone watched the Kravith delegates shift their bulk in seats designed for smaller beings, while their translator devices hummed with barely contained aggression. 3 months of talks had brought them nowhere, and everyone in the Grand Assembly Hall knew it. The Kravith War leader Braskin rose to his full height, his scaled hide rippling with colors that Rebecca's briefing material said indicated contempt. "Your species wastes our time with endless talking," he announced through the translator. "The Kravith Dominion has claimed the outer reaches through right of strength. Your colonies will evacuate within 72 hours or face removal." Around the circular chamber, representatives from 40 different species watched in silence. Some looked uncomfortable, others relieved that humanity was the target instead of them. The council mediator, a floating gas being named Whisper, tried to interject with procedural objections that everyone ignored. Rebecca remained seated while the Kravith delegation stomped toward the exit. She'd been a prosecutor before joining Earth's diplomatic corps, and she knew when opposing counsel was bluffing versus when they meant business. Braskin meant business. 15 colonies, she said quietly to her assistant. 40 million people, they actually think we'll just abandon them. Her communication device buzzed before the Kravith had even cleared the chamber. Admiral Patricia Hayes appeared on the small screen, her face carved from decades of military service. "I watched the feed," Hayes said. "Get back to the embassy. We're convening the crisis committee in 20 minutes. The embassy conference room had been designed to impress alien visitors with humanity's culture. Paintings from every continent lined the walls, and the furniture represented craftsmanship from dozens of nations. Now it served as a war room while Rebecca, Admiral Hayes, and Defense Minister Robert Cole reviewed their options. "Evacuation is logistically impossible," Cole said, pulling up holographic displays of the threatened colonies. "Even if we had enough transport ships, which we don't, 72 hours isn't enough time to move 40 million people, and the Kravith know it." Hayes leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. "They're counting on us to look weak when we can't. Comply, then they'll move in, claim we abandoned our own people, and the council will wring their hands while doing nothing. It's the same pattern they've used on 12 other species." Rebecca had read those reports. The Kravith would occupy the colonies, enslave or relocate the populations, and add another chunk of territory to their expanding empire. The Galactic Council would pass a strongly worded resolution and forget about it within a year. "What if we don't evacuate?" she asked. Both military officers looked at her. "You mean fight," Cole said. "The Council has strict regulations about armed conflict between member species. We'd be violating a dozen treaties." "Treaties the Kravith are already violating by threatening our civilians," Rebecca pointed out. "Besides, I'm not suggesting we fight. I'm suggesting we defend. There's a legal difference." Hayes pulled up different displays, these showing ship deployments and defensive capabilities. "We've been building quietly since we joined the galactic community," she said. "Everyone assumed we were just making cargo haulers and scientific vessels. They didn't look too closely at the specifications." The ships rotating in the hologram looked unremarkable from the outside. Standard fusion drives, conventional hull designs, nothing that would alarm the Council's technology review boards. "What makes them special?" Rebecca asked. "Everything the galaxy forgot about," Hayes said with a thin smile. "The Council species have been using plasma weapons and energy shields for so long they've forgotten the basics. We didn't. Our ships are armored with layered composites that laugh at energy weapons. Our shields are designed to stop kinetic impacts, and our weapons are kinetic accelerators," Cole finished. "Railguns that can throw a slug at 10% light speed. The Kravith shields are optimized against energy weapons. They'll stop our rounds about as well as paper stops bullets." Rebecca felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Hope maybe mixed with grim satisfaction. "How fast can we deploy?" "Fleet assets are already moving," Hayes said. "We started positioning ships near the threatened colonies 2 weeks ago when the talks started breaking down. Each colony has defensive platforms we can activate remotely. The Kravith think they're weather satellites. So we can actually protect our people, Rebecca said. We can do more than that. Hayes replied. We can send a message to every species in the galaxy that's been watching bullies operate with impunity. Humanity doesn't abandon its own, and we don't back down from threats. Cole pulled up the master deployment plan, labeled Protocol Ironwall, ship movements, defensive positions, communication protocols, rules of engagement. It was comprehensive and clearly had been developed over months. This isn't improvised, Rebecca observed. We've been preparing since we first encountered the Kravith, Hayes confirmed. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. That's how Earth survived long enough to reach the stars. Rebecca stood, decision crystallizing. I'll deliver our response to the Council tomorrow. In the meantime, activate Protocol Ironwall. Send word to all colony governors to shelter in place and prepare their populations. 24 hours later, Rebecca stood before the assembled council with the Kravith delegation watching from their elevated platform. Braskin looked smug, clearly expecting humanity's capitulation. The council recognizes Ambassador Stone, Whisper announced. Rebecca kept her statement brief. Humanity's response to the Kravith ultimatum is as follows: no. The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Braskin's hide flushed deep purple. You refuse? Then your colonies will burn. Our fleets launch immediately. You gave us 72 hours, Rebecca said calmly. That was generous. You see, you've made two critical mistakes. First, you assumed our patience was weakness. Second, you gave us time to prepare. Humanity doesn't abandon its people, and we don't surrender to bullies. She walked toward the exit while the chamber dissolved into chaos behind her. Her communicator showed a simple message from Hayes. Fleets in position, let them come. In orbit around 15 human colonies, warships powered up their systems and waited. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened a species from Earth. War Marshal Drenoth had conquered 17 worlds in his career, and New Galway would be his 18th. The human colony orbited a yellow star much like their homeworld, with farms and cities visible from orbit like a map waiting to be claimed. His fleet of 200 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the system's edge, weapons already charging. Scan for defensive installations, he ordered his tactical officer. The reply came. Within seconds, detecting 50 vessels in orbit around the planet, War Marshal, they appear to be human design. Drenoth's crest flared with amusement. 50 ships against 200. The humans were either brave or stupid, probably both. What class of vessels? Unknown configuration, the officer replied, confusion evident in his voice. They're approximately cruiser-sized, but the energy signatures don't match any known military design. They might be converted civilian ships. That made sense. Humans were new to the galactic community and wouldn't have had time to build a proper military. They'd probably thrown together whatever they could from mining ships and cargo haulers. Maintain formation, Drenoth commanded. Advance to weapons range. If they don't withdraw, we'll demonstrate the price of defiance. The human ships held their position in a defensive sphere around New Galway. Drenoth had to admit their formation was competent. But formation didn't matter when you were this badly outnumbered. His communications officer spoke up. War Marshal, receiving transmission from the human vessels. Put it through, Drenoth said. A human female appeared on the screen, wearing a simple military uniform with commander's insignia. This is Commander Helen Wu of the Earth Defense Force. You are approaching a sovereign human colony with hostile intent. Leave now, or we will defend our people. Drenoth laughed, a sound like grinding rocks that his translator wouldn't properly convey. I am War Marshal Drenoth of the Kravith Dominion. I have conquered more worlds than your species has colonized. Your toy ships cannot stop us. Withdraw or be destroyed. Last warning, Wu replied. Turn back, the transmission ended. Arrogant prey, Drenoth muttered. All ships weapons free, target the human vessels, leave the planet intact for occupation. His fleet opened fire with plasma cannons, brilliant streams of superheated gas that could melt through most known ship armor. The human vessel's shields flared as they absorbed the impacts. Drenoth watched his tactical display, waiting for the shields to collapse. They didn't. "War Marshal, their shields are holding," his tactical officer reported. "Minimal damage across all targets." "Increase power," Drenoth ordered. "Concentrate fire." The human ships began moving, not retreating but adjusting positions. Then they returned fire, Drenoth. Expected plasma or perhaps laser batteries. What he got was something else entirely. The first human ship fired what appeared to be solid projectiles. They moved faster than any missile Drenoth had ever seen, crossing the distance in fractions of a second. When they hit the lead Kravith cruiser, the shields did nothing. The projectile punched through like the shield wasn't even there, then through the armor, then out the other side. The cruiser exploded in a cascade of secondary detonations. "What was that?" Drenoth demanded. "Kinetic weapon, War Marshal," his science officer stammered. "Solid mass accelerated to extreme velocity. Our shields are tuned for energy weapons. They don't stop physical objects moving that fast." More human ships fired. Each shot killed a Kravith vessel. Drenoth's fleet, which moments ago had seemed overwhelming, was being systematically dismantled. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "Return fire, maximum intensity." The battle became chaos. Kravith ships tried to dodge, but the human projectiles were too fast. Tried to run, but the human vessels were faster. In 20 minutes, Drenoth had lost 50 ships. The humans hadn't lost a single vessel. "All ships retreat," he finally ordered. "Jump to hyperspace emergency protocols." "War Marshal, they're pursuing," his navigator warned. The human ships followed the fleeing Kravith fleet, their weapons continuing to fire with mechanical precision. But Drenoth noticed something. They were aiming for engines and weapon systems, not killing shots. They were disabling his fleet, not destroying it. "They want prisoners," he realized. "Cut engines, signal surrender before they decide to stop being merciful." His flagship powered down its weapons. Around him, the surviving Kravith vessels did the same. 30 ships left from 200. The worst defeat in Kravith military history. Human vessels surrounded them, weapons still tracking but not firing. Commander Wu's face appeared on his screen again. "War Marshal Drenoth, your fleet is defeated. Your crews will be treated as prisoners of war under human protocols. Prepare to be boarded." Human Marines came through the airlock in powered armor, weapons ready but not firing. They secured his ship with professional efficiency. Drenoth found himself escorted to his own conference room, where Wu waited. "Sit," she said, "not a request." Drenoth sat, his crest flattened. "In submission, you fight well for a young species," he said. "We fight because we have to," Wu replied. "Your government threatened 15 of our colonies. Did you think we'd only defend one?" Drenoth's blood chilled. "All 15. "All 15, Wu confirmed. "Your fleets are defeated. Your government has lost 2,000 ships in a single day, and not one human colony was harmed." She leaned forward. "Here's what happens now. Your crews will be fed, given medical care, and treated with dignity, something your government doesn't extend to species you conquer. You'll be returned to Kravith space when this is over, and you'll carry a message. Humanity doesn't start fights, but we finish them." Drenoth said nothing. What could he say? The Kravith had attacked what they thought was prey and found a predator instead. "One more thing," Wu added. "Your government has 72 hours to respond to humanity's terms, the same deadline you gave us. We thought that was fair." She stood and left him there. Drenoth sat in the conference room of his captured flagship and wondered how his species would survive what they'd started. Across the galaxy, other Kravith war marshals were learning the same lesson. The humans had been patient, had been peaceful, had tried diplomacy, but they were still children of Earth, and Earth didn't raise victims. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened with every seat occupied for the first time in decades. Species that normally sent junior diplomats had dispatched their senior ambassadors. Word of humanity's victories had spread faster than light itself, carried by news services and gossip networks across 1,000 worlds. Rebecca Stone entered the Grand Assembly Hall with her delegation, and the whispers began immediately. She'd been here 3 days ago as a supplicant whose negotiations had failed. Now she walked to the speaker's platform as a representative of a species that had just humiliated the galaxy's biggest bully. Ambassador Tillith of the HREN Consortium watched her approach with narrowed eyes. His species had grown comfortable with the current order, where strong species took what they wanted, and the Council provided cover through meaningless resolutions. Humanity threatened that comfortable arrangement. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Stone," Whisper announced, his gaseous form pulsing with nervous energy. Rebecca looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from species both powerful and weak. "3 days ago, I stood before you seeking intervention in the Kravith threat to our colonies," she began. The Council declined to act. That inaction led directly to the Kravith attack. "So I have a simple question. Why did you allow this to happen?" Uncomfortable silence filled the hall. No one wanted to answer. Rebecca continued. "The Kravith Dominion has spent the last century expanding through conquest, 12 species subjugated, hundreds of worlds seized, billions enslaved or displaced. And what did this council do? Passed resolutions, issued statements of concern, held committee meetings, achieved nothing." She activated a holographic display showing the Kravith expansion over time, red territory spreading like a stain across the galactic map. "You allowed this because you were afraid. The Kravith were powerful, and it was easier to let them take what they wanted as long as they didn't take from you. Until eventually they came for us." A merchant captain from the Venn Collective watched from the visitors' gallery. He'd lost 3 trade routes to Kravith expansion. Watching someone finally say what everyone thought brought tears to his eyes. On a refugee station orbiting a dead world, a Talrus family huddled around a screen broadcasting the council session. They'd fled Kravith occupation 2 years ago. The mother held her children close as they listened to the humans speak. Back in the chamber, Rebecca presented humanity's proposal. Earth offers a 3-part solution to prevent future aggression. First, this council needs actual authority to stop wars of conquest, not just debate them. Second, we propose a mutual defense pact for species willing to stand together against aggression. Third, humanity will share military technology and training with allied species. The chamber erupted in chatter. Ambassador Tillith rose to speak. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Tillith," Whisper announced. "This is madness," Tillith declared. "Humanity has been part of the galactic community for less than a decade. You are children playing with weapons you barely understand, and now you want to remake our entire civilization based on your primitive notions of collective defense." He gestured dramatically. "Look at human history. Thousands of years of warfare, nations rising and falling through violence, your world nearly destroyed itself multiple times before you achieved space travel, and you want us to trust you with galactic security." Several species murmured agreement. Old prejudices about Deathworld species surfaced easily. Rebecca let Tillith finish. She'd expected this argument. "You're right about human history," she said calmly. "We did fight wars, we did nearly destroy ourselves. We know the cost of conflict better than any species in this chamber. That's exactly why you should listen to us." She pulled up new images, human peacekeepers helping rebuild war-torn regions, disaster relief efforts, humanitarian missions. Earth unified after we stared into the abyss. We learned that cooperation beats competition, that protecting the weak makes everyone stronger. These aren't primitive notions, they're survival strategies that work. Rebecca pointed at Tillith. "What did your species do when the Kravith attacked the Talrus worlds? You issued a statement deploring the violence. What did the Council do? Held a debate. What did humanity do when threatened? We stood and fought, and then we offered to help others do the same." She turned to address the full chamber. "We don't want to rule you. We're not offering to solve all your problems. We're simply saying that we'll stand beside any species willing to stand up to bullies. but we will never again watch innocents suffer while bureaucrats debate procedure. The council leadership called for a recess. Delegates rushed to private meetings. Species began choosing sides. Smaller nations, tired of being victims, approached the human delegation. Larger powers, comfortable with the status quo, gathered around Tillith. Admiral Hayes watched from the human embassy. "The vote will be close," she told Rebecca via secure channel. "I know," Rebecca replied. "But even if we lose, we've changed the conversation. Species are talking about collective defense now, about standing together. That's progress." The session reconvened 2 hours later. Tension filled the hall as delegates returned to their seats. Council Chair Meditation, a crystalline being whose species had founded the council millennia ago, called for the vote. The proposal before this body is to establish a reformed council structure with enforcement authority and a voluntary mutual defense pact, Meditation said. All species may vote. Abstentions will be recorded. The vote proceeded alphabetically by species name. Each yes brought relief to some delegates and worry to others. Each no reinforced the old order. Abstentions showed fear of commitment. The final tally appeared on displays throughout the chamber. The measure passes with 60% approval, Meditation announced. Implementation will begin immediately. Rebecca allowed herself a small smile, not the overwhelming mandate she'd hoped for, but enough to proceed. 40% either opposed or were too afraid to choose. That would be the challenge going forward. First action under the new authority, she announced. Humanity requests council approval for humanitarian relief missions to former Kravith-occupied territories. Will provide aid, medical care, and reconstruction assistance. Even Tillith couldn't oppose that publicly. The vote passed easily. As the session adjourned, Rebecca knew the real work was just beginning. She'd won the vote, but now she had to win hearts and minds. Fortunately, humans were good at that too. Fleet Admiral Nathan Berg stood on the observation deck of the relief ship Compassion and watched the Talrus colony world grow larger in the viewport. Smoke still rose from cities bombed during the Kravith occupation, and orbital debris floated in scattered patterns where defensive platforms had been destroyed. His fleet of 10 vessels carried medical supplies, construction equipment, food, water purification systems, and 3,000 volunteers ready to help. "The locals are sending cautious transmissions," his communications officer reported. "They want to know our intentions." Berg understood their fear. They'd heard about humanity's military victories, about human weapons that could destroy Kravith fleets. Now human ships were approaching their world, and traumatized populations expected the worst. "Tell them we're here to help rebuild," he said. "No weapons, no occupation, just assistance. They can refuse if they want." The landing began at dawn in the capital city of Vendra. Human shuttles touched down in a plaza that had once been a market. Talrus civilians watched from ruined buildings, ready to flee. Berg was the first one down the ramp, wearing a simple uniform with no weapons visible. "My name is Nathan Berg," he said through a translator. "We brought supplies and people who know how to rebuild. Where do you need us most?" The local leader, a Talrus elder named Prenna, approached cautiously. Her people were mammalian, with soft fur and large eyes that showed every emotion. Right now those eyes showed mistrust. "Why would you help us?" she asked. "What do you want in return?" "Nothing," Berg said simply. "Your people suffered under Kravith occupation. We can help fix some of that damage. Seems like the right thing to do." Prenna stared at him. "The Kravith said they came to bring order. They said obedience would be rewarded. Instead, they took our children for labor camps and burned our farms. Why should we trust another powerful species?" Berg nodded slowly. "You shouldn't trust us yet. Trust is earned, so let us earn it. Show us what needs fixing and we'll fix it. If you want us to leave, we'll leave. Your world, your choice." That afternoon, human engineers surveyed a damaged water treatment plant. The Kravith had bombed it during their retreat, leaving half the city without clean water. A young engineer named Rachel Kim studied the wreckage and started sketching repairs. "This is fixable," she told Prenna. "We have the parts on our ships. Give us 3 days." Prena watched humans unload equipment, set up work camps, and begin repairs. They moved with efficiency but stopped frequently to ask local workers for input. They didn't give orders. They requested permission. Slowly, Talrus civilians began emerging from hiding. Medical teams set up clinics in undamaged buildings. Human doctors worked alongside Talrus healers, learning local physiology and sharing human medical knowledge. A Talrus mother brought her sick child to the clinic, expecting to be turned away. Instead, a human doctor named William Carter spent 2 hours diagnosing a preventable disease and 3 more teaching the mother how to treat it. By the 3rd day, Talrus children played near the human work sites. By the 5th day, they were bringing human workers gifts of food and flowers. By the 7th day, a little Talrus girl named Senna offered Rachel Kim a flower she'd picked from her family's recovering garden. Rachel knelt down to accept it. "Thank you," she said. "It's beautiful." Senna smiled, the first genuine smile her mother had seen since the occupation ended. News of the interaction spread through the community. Humans weren't conquerors, they were helpers. Word spread beyond the Talrus world, too. News networks broadcast images of human engineers rebuilding schools, human doctors healing the sick, human volunteers clearing rubble. Alongside grateful locals, species across the galaxy watched and reconsidered their assumptions about the aggressive Deathworlders. But not everyone appreciated humanity's growing influence. Ambassador Tillith met with 6 allied species in a secure conference room. "The humans are winning through charity what they couldn't win through force," he said. "Every world they help becomes aligned with their interests. This is empire building with a friendly face." "What do you propose?" asked the representative from the Corvan Unity. "We expose their true motives," Tillith replied. "We show the galaxy that humans are militaristic opportunists using aid as a tool of expansion. We turn public opinion against them before they become too powerful to oppose." The conspiracy began with leaked intelligence reports, carefully edited to remove context. Media outlets friendly to Tillith's faction published stories questioning human motives. Social networks filled with speculation about secret military bases being built under cover of humanitarian missions. Meanwhile, in Kravith space, hardliners refused to accept defeat. War leader Braskin, demoted and disgraced, gathered supporters from the military. "The moderates want to surrender," he told his followers. "They want to accept human terms and abandon our heritage. We must restore Kravith honor." 20 Kravith warships, held in reserve during the main conflict, launched toward neutral space where human relief convoys traveled. Their target was a convoy carrying supplies to another liberated world. 3 human escort vessels protected 30 cargo ships. Commander Lucy Ockafer commanded the escort group from her ship Steadfast. Her sensors detected the Kravith fleet approaching. "All ships, battle stations," she ordered. "Convoy vessels, prepare for emergency jump." The Kravith fleet emerged from hyperspace surrounding the convoy. Braskin's voice crackled over open channels. "Humans, you have shamed the Kravith Dominion. Now we will show the galaxy that you are not invincible. Surrender or die." Lucy considered her options. She was outnumbered nearly 7 to 1. Her mission was protecting the convoy, not seeking battle. "Kravith vessels, you are attacking a humanitarian mission in neutral space," she transmitted. "This is a violation of council law. Withdraw now and no one needs to die today." "We will restore our honor with your destruction," Braskin replied. His ships opened fire. Lucy's vessels moved to intercept, placing themselves between the Kravith and the cargo ships. "Convoy, jump now," she ordered. The cargo vessels vanished into hyperspace, leaving 3 human warships facing 20 Kravith. "Well," Lucy said to her crew, "let's teach them why picking fights with humans is a bad idea." Her weapons officer smiled. "Firing solution locked, Commander." "Make it count," Lucy replied. The battle began and neutral space lit up with weapons fire. The secure meeting room floated in neutral space, a converted mining station that belonged to no government. Rebecca Stone arrived with Admiral Hayes while their security team swept for surveillance devices. This meeting couldn't appear in any official records, and both sides knew it. Shenka entered through the opposite airlock, accompanied by two advisors. She was young for a Kravith leader, her scales still bright with colors that indicated uncertainty rather than the confidence her government position required. "Ambassador Stone, Admiral Hayes," she said through her translator, "thank you for agreeing to this meeting." "Your message said you represented Kravith moderates seeking peace," Rebecca replied. "That's worth hearing, though I'll admit to skepticism." Shenka's scales rippled with acknowledgement. "You should be skeptical. My people attacked yours, killed human defenders, threatened civilians. Now I come asking for help. It sounds absurd even to me." "Then why are you here?" Hayes asked bluntly. "Because my species is tearing itself apart," Shenka said. "The military defeats shattered our national identity. We built our entire culture on conquest and expansion. When you stopped us, it broke something fundamental. Now hardliners blame moderates for weakness, and moderates blame hardliners for starting an unwinnable war. Without outside help, we'll have civil war within months." Rebecca studied the Kravith leader carefully. "You want human assistance establishing a new government," she said. "After your people tried to conquer our colonies, you understand how that looks." "I understand perfectly," Shenka replied. "It looks like the victims helping their attackers, like humans are too weak to hold a grudge. But I also know you're not weak and you're not stupid. A stable Kravith government serves your interests better than a collapsed empire spreading chaos across the region." Hayes glanced at Rebecca. They discussed this scenario. "What are you offering?" "Recognition of all lost territories, reparations to species harmed by Kravith expansion, trials for military leaders who committed war crimes, democratic reforms throughout Kravith space, human observers to verify compliance, and complete demilitarization of our borders with human space." Rebecca felt a headache forming. These were exactly the terms humanity would have demanded, which meant Shenka understood negotiation. And if the hardliners refuse? "They will refuse," Shenka said quietly. "That's why I need your help. Moderate Kravith can't defeat the military faction alone. We need support to survive what's coming." The meeting lasted 4 hours. By the end, they had the framework of an agreement. But before Rebecca could transmit it to Earth for approval, news broke across the galaxy. Ambassador Tillith's intelligence network had discovered the secret meeting. He leaked it immediately to friendly media outlets with carefully crafted spin. "Humans making deals with war criminals," the headlines screamed. "Secret negotiations bypass council oversight. Ambassador Stone compromises victims for political gain." The public reaction was explosive. Species that had suffered under Kravith occupation demanded harsh punishment. The council called emergency sessions. Human diplomatic channels flooded with demands for explanation. Rebecca made a decision that would define her career. Instead of hiding or defending in private, she requested an open council session. "Broadcast it to the entire galaxy," she told Whisper. "Let everyone see what we're actually proposing." The chamber filled with observers. News networks from 1,000 worlds carried the feed. Rebecca stood at the speaker's platform with Shenka beside her. "I'm going to explain exactly what we discussed," Rebecca began, "and then let the galaxy decide if it wants peace or revenge." She laid out the terms: recognition of independence for freed worlds, reparations, trials, democratic reforms, demilitarization, human oversight, nothing hidden, nothing softened. "Yes, the Kravith attacked us," she said. "Yes, they've hurt many species in this chamber, but we can choose 2 paths forward." She gestured to displays showing historical examples. "We can demand total punishment, dismantle their government, occupy their worlds, leave them broken and resentful. That approach has a name. It's called creating the next war, or we can help build something better, support Kravith who want change. Give them a path to rejoin the galactic community as equals. That's harder, requires more courage, but it actually works." Tillith rose to speak. The human asks us to forgive atrocities, to embrace those who burned our worlds. No, Rebecca interrupted. I'm asking you to be smart. Kravith hardliners want this peace process to fail. They want you to reject Shenka's offer. Because then they can say moderates were foolish to try negotiation and the only path forward is more war. Don't give them that victory. A Talrus representative stood. Everyone recognized Prenna from the news coverage of human relief efforts. May I speak? She asked. Meditation granted permission. Prenna approached the platform. My world suffered 20 years under Kravith occupation, she said. They took our children, burned our homes. We have every right to demand vengeance, she paused. But I've watched humans help us rebuild. I've seen their doctors heal our sick, their engineers restore our infrastructure. They didn't come for conquest or control. They came to help. She turned to face the full assembly. If humans who were directly attacked can offer Kravith a path to peace, then who are we to demand more blood? I support this agreement. Other Talrus delegates stood in agreement. Then representatives from other liberated worlds. The chamber filled with voices supporting the peace process. The vote came hours later, 52% approval, barely passing but enough to proceed. Shenka formally signed the accord with Rebecca. This will start a civil war in Kravith space, Shenka warned. I know, Rebecca said. Will you request military assistance under the treaty? I have to, Shenka replied. The hardliners control most of the fleet. Without help, the moderate government falls within days. Rebecca contacted Admiral Hayes. We need to deploy peacekeeping forces to Kravith space. Hayes was quiet for a moment. That's going to confirm every fear about human imperialism. Probably, Rebecca agreed. Do it anyway. 3 days later, human ships entered Kravith space for the first time, not as conquerors but as protectors of a fragile peace. Braskin's hardliners attacked immediately. Human forces established safe zones around government facilities, ensured fair elections could proceed, defended civilians from both sides. News networks broadcast everything. Humans fighting to protect Kravith civilians from their own military. Human medics treating wounded from all factions. Human diplomats mediating between opposing groups. 6 months later, Shenka won Kravith's first democratic election. Braskin's hardliners lost but weren't destroyed, given a voice in the new system rather than crushed into resentment. Human forces began withdrawing as promised. Rebecca addressed the council one final time. 6 months ago, peace negotiations collapsed, she said. Everyone expected war. Instead, we built something better. Not perfect, not easy, but better. That's what happens when species choose cooperation over domination. She looked around the chamber. Humanity didn't want to reshape the galaxy. We just refused to accept the old way, where might made right and the strong preyed on the weak. We're from Earth. We know what happens when you don't stand up to bullies, so we stood and invited others to stand with us. Outside, human ships departed Council space, but they left behind something permanent, proof that another way was possible. That strength could protect rather than conquer, that even species from harsh worlds could build peace. The galaxy would never forget the lessons learned when humanity said no to compromise with injustice.